Pre-AP, Precalculus, or Chapter 2. This is free response number 9. The graph of the function f of x is pictured below. The table of values is also given of a function of g of x, whose graph is formed by connecting the points in the table with straight line segments. Use the information to answer the following questions. A, find the value of -2 times f of -5 minus g times f of 2. Show your work. Well, there's 2 points that you can earn from this. You get 1 point if you get the correct answer of -11 and show the work along the way. You're also going to get 1 point if you figure out that f of -5 is -4 and that g of f of 2 ends up being -3. So 1 point for that whole thing, 1 point for the whole answer being 2. For the f part, f of -5, you go in the graph at -5, see what the y value is. It's -4. That's why we're replacing this with -4. F of 2, we go to the right 2, we get 0. Use the table. What is g of 0? It's -3. That's why g of f of 2 is -3. Part B, is g of x, that's this fellow here, an even function, an odd function, or neither? Give a numerical reason for your answer. Well, in order to be even, for every x value that has a y, if you change the sign of the x value, it has the same y value. And that's what's happening here. Now, there's an exception to that because 0 doesn't have a negative version. It's on the line of symmetry. So there is no alternate version of 0 here because a -0 is still 0. This is an even function. You get 1 point for saying it's even. And then you get 1 point for giving a good reason. And the only good reason that I can think of, for every point xy, there is also a point -xy. Might be better if we say for every point xy on g of x. It's a little more specific. We did mention g of x up here, so maybe that's good enough. C is worth 3 points. If p of x is ax squared minus 3x plus 10, for what value, or values, of a is p of -2, means we're going to put a -2 in for these x values, which is what I did here, equal to f of g of -2. So using your table, figure out what g of -2 is. This is g, -2 gives us a -1. That's why I have -1 there. And what's f of -1? On my graph, this is function f. I go left 1, and it gives me a y value of 2. That's why I have 2 here. If you simplify f of g of -2 down to 2, you get 1 point. If you put a -2 in for p of x and it simplifies down to 4a plus 16, you get 1 point. There's 2 points there. You get an additional point by setting 4a plus 16 equal to 2 and then solving it, so you get a equals -7/2. It's 3 points total. Now you could separate your work and have off to the side what p of -2 is, write that down. What f of g of -2 is, write that down. And the third step, set them equal to each other and then solve it. Or you can just write it all as once, which is what I did here. Part D, identify the interval along the x-axis, it's always along the x-axis by the way, for which f of x is less than 0. Give a reason for your answer. Let me give you the reason first, then we'll look at the graph. When f of x is less than 0, f of x is below the x-axis. So if we look up here, it's below the x-axis at -5 until we get to -3.5 non-inclusive, and then to the right of 2 to 5 non-inclusive because it's an open circle. So you give those intervals, and then that's it. That concludes free response question number 9.